The Miocene epoch began around 23 million years ago, with a relatively stable and warm climate. Multiple proxies suggest a spike in global average temperatures in the Middle Miocene around 18 to 14 million years ago, an event known as the Middle Miocene Climactic Optimum, or MMCO. This warming event likely caused a rise in the productivity of many ecosystems. Immediately following this relatively warm period, the climate rapidly began cooling to levels lower than attested to prior to the MMCO, a climatic downturn sometimes known as the Middle Miocene Climatic Transition. This culminated in the Middle Miocene Disruption, or MMD, a minor extinction event caused when many ecosystems became cooler and more arid, resulting in a decline in productivity and a bottleneck in resources, which caused a reduction in the diversity of many groups. The MMCO saw a rise in diversity in many groups in response to the warmer, wetter, and more productive environment promoted by higher global temperatures. Radiations have been studied in the terrestrial lineages including, but not limited to horses, rodents, turtles, and crocodilians. In the oceans, it allowed diversification events in many invertebrate groups as well as sharks and other vertebrates. This was followed by an ecological bottleneck created by the relatively less productive, colder, and more arid climate of the Middle Miocene disruption, which caused a marked decline in all of these groups. Lamniform sharks tend to be specialized and occupy niches at a high trophic level. Thus, they are particularly vulnerable to environmental changes, making them valuable as indicator species in fossil marine assemblages. Many are pelagic and travel long distances, meaning their population reflects global or at least regional effects rather than localized ecological change. Decline in lamniform shark diversity shows a strong relationship with increases in overall oceanic extinction rates for these reasons. Some examples of specialized lamniforms are the durophagous Tychocorax, the deep-sea piscivore Pseudocarcharias, the filter feeders Serrations, Megachasma, Pseudomegachasma, and Cretamanta, and the strange and sometimes serrated genus with no modern analog, Zophotolamia. The intensely studied Calvert Formation of Maryland provides a roughly continuous record from the late Aquitanian approximately 21 million years ago to the early Servalian 14 million years ago. This time range conveniently encompasses the Middle Miocene climatic optimum. The late Servalian Choptank Formation captures the fauna during the Middle Miocene climatic transition and the Middle Miocene disruption. These assemblages provide a window into the ecological changes which occurred due to these climatic events. Both these assemblages contain a diverse community of fossil sharks, including multiple lamniform sharks. The environment represented is fully marine inner to middle shelf conditions, with pelagic shark teeth being occasionally preserved. When found in situ, fossils can be attached to well-dated and easily identified layers known as zones or beds. Threshers are sharks of the family Alopiidae. They are pelagic sharks and usually a relatively small component of oceanic faunas. There are 4 thresher species represented in the Calvert Formation, 2 of which are early representatives of extant species. Alopias vulpinus is the modern common thresher, while Alopias superciliosus is the modern big-eye thresher. The other 2 are species known colloquially as giant threshers. Alopias grandis is the giant thresher, while Alopias palladici is the serrated giant thresher. There is a weakly crenulated transitional morph, which is usually called transitional Alopias grandis. There is a third species which is often called a giant thresher that is older and likely only distantly related, named Trigonotodus alteri, which is not found in Maryland. Modern threshers are pelagic piscivores which range from small to medium size. They possess small recurved teeth specialized for piscivory. Accordingly, their jaw is small in proportion to their total length. They have an elongated caudal fin which can be whipped at up to 80 miles per hour in order to stun fish. There are currently 3 named species which vary marginally in lifestyle and anatomy: Alopias vulpinus, Alopias superciliosus, and Alopias pelagicus, as well as at least 1 unnamed cryptic species almost indistinguishable from Alopias pelagicus. Alopiid relationships are poorly understood, and all fossil representatives are known from teeth alone, so any phylogeny is hypothetical at best. The origins of Maryland's giant threshers are uncertain, but appear to be outside of the crown group Alopias. There is a smaller but still relatively large undescribed species from the Miocene of Belgium, which may have been a close relative. Alopias hermani from the late Eocene may be a common ancestor or close to the common ancestor of extant threshers and Maryland's giant threshers. The other giant thresher, known solely from the Oligocene of South Carolina, is Trigonotodus alteri, also known as the cusp giant thresher. It appears to be related to the smaller Eocene-aged Alopiid, Trigonotodus tushbaricus, which also has cusps in a similar crown shape. The Eocene-aged Usachius wardi has small cusps and a much less specialized design, and is thus pictured here as a basal Alopiid. There are no threshers known from the Paleocene epoch. In the late Cretaceous, there is a shark with a similar tooth design to threshers, known as Paraonomotodon angustidens, which is sometimes assigned to Alopiidae, which would make it an even more basal genus. This is consistent with mitochondrial DNA analyses, which have placed threshers at the base of a clade containing megamouth sharks, crocodile sharks, and Odontaspis, the genus which includes the big eye and small-toothed sand tiger sharks. As the fossil record of Odontaspis reaches back to the Cretaceous, presumably so does Alopiidae. However, Paraonomotodon lacks cusps. Phylogenetic bracketing allows us to infer the original threshers would have likely had cusps, and the two other basal genera in Alopiidae have them. The ancestors of Alopias also likely had them, as extant threshers and giant threshers sometimes have vestigial cusplets. If it is a thresher, cusplessness may have evolved independently several times in this family. However, some authors have suggested Paraonomotodon is related to Anomotodon, a putative goblin shark, and the similarities to Alopias are merely convergent. Either way, a cusped ghost lineage leading from the late Cretaceous through the Paleocene may exist and has thus far eluded science. It is unclear when the elongated upper caudal fin emerged, though early fossil lamniforms, goblin sharks, and other close relatives of Alopiids all have relatively long upper caudal fin lobes. Hopefully, future finds will clarify Alopiid relationships. Alopias grandis is extremely rare in Maryland, likely due to a pelagic lifestyle and being a relatively small component of the oceanic fauna, much like modern threshers. Even the smallest individuals are much larger than extant thresher teeth. It is thought they lacked the specialized elongated caudal fin of extant threshers. When estimated using tooth heights using regression lines from extant threshers and the tail is subtracted, the largest individuals are comparable to the largest extant great white sharks in size. However, it is not known if giant threshers had the same proportions as extant threshers, so these estimations are tentative. They are rare but known in the Atlantic deposits of North America and Europe, as well as specific deposits in South America, suggesting a circumglobal distribution. Their confirmed temporal range in Maryland is from around 20 to 15 million years ago. A small portion of Alopias grandis teeth are known to have waves and crenulations on their edges, the precursor to serrations. This strongly suggests Alopias grandis is the ancestor of Alopias palataci, the giant serrated thresher. In 2020, a weakly crenulated A. grandis was found in situ in Zone 10 of the Calvert Formation. This points to the transition between the two starting at around 17 million years ago. Specimens are known to show a spectrum of variation. Serrations appear from crenulations at the base of the crown. In presumably later specimens, serrations move up the crown until they finally reach the tip. The assignment of these specimens to either species of giant thresher is difficult, though A. palataci is usually defined as having coarse serrations all the way up to the tip, so these teeth are usually labeled as transitional Alopias grandis. Unfortunately, most transitionals are not found in situ, making the transition hard to track temporally speaking. Alopias palataci, or the giant serrated thresher, is in many ways very similar to Alopias grandis. It is usually around the same size and has the same basic shape. However, coarse serrations cover the edge of the crown. The crown tends to be larger than the root, giving the impression of a more robust tooth. It is known primarily from the Burdigalian to Langian exposures in Maryland, but in situ finds in well-dated beds are restricted to bed 14, which dates to around 14 million years ago. A singular tooth was found associated with the Newport News bed, an informal basal unit of the Calvert Formation in Virginia, which has not yet been firmly dated. But as it was found at the bottom of a river by a diver, its association with the bed is tenuous. Serrations are well known as adaptations for cutting through flesh. Extant great whites, Carcharodon carcharias, may provide a rough modern analog for Alopias palataci, as they seem to approach the same sizes and have robust serrated teeth. They were both likely pelagic predators. Great whites eat a variety of food when given the opportunity, but are particularly well specialized for eating pinnipeds, including seals and sea lions. They jerk their head from side to side, using their serrated teeth like knives to cut flesh from pinnipeds or whale carcasses. This may have also been the function of the serrated giant thresher's dentition. Further analysis of the biomechanical properties of Alopias palladici tooth design would be informative. Another large lamniform shark known from the Calvert Formation of Maryland is Carcharocles chobutensis, a shark from the extinct family Otodontidae. It is much more common than giant threshers and much larger, likely greatly exceeding 35 feet in length in some cases. It is thought to have consumed cetaceans, such as whales and dolphins. Even the largest adults have vestigial cusplets on the corner of the crown, left over from ancestors with more prominent cusps. Carcharocles megalodon is known from the Calvert, Choptank, and St. Mary's formations. It is differentiated from Carcharocles chobutensis by its lack of cusplets. It reaches much larger sizes than its likely ancestor Carcharocles chobutensis, possibly exceeding 60 feet in length, making it one of the largest sharks of all time. It is known to have fed on cetaceans whose bones sometimes have large distinctive bite marks easily matched to this species. It has been speculated juvenile Carcharocles megalodon subsisted on pinnipeds, though this is yet to be proven. Here is a recent life reconstruction of Carcharocles megalodon using estimations based on modern lamnids. The pressures which selected for the loss of cusps in the Carcharocles lineage is still debated. Past authors have assumed they were structural weak points lost in order to cope with increased bite force as Carcharocles became even more specialized in the consumption of large marine mammals. However, recent stress analyses published this year have found younger Carcharocles species do not have more structurally sound teeth when faced with either piercing pressure or pressure from cutting side to side. It has been suggested the loss of cusps is more likely a function of increased tooth size. In any case, the loss of cusps is likely linked to increased specialization in the diet of Carcharocles. Recent study of Carcharocles species in the Chesapeake group has shown cuspless morphs arise in small numbers in the basal part of the Calvert Formation, then rise quickly relative to cusped Carcharocles in the upper Calvert Formation. No Carcharocles chobutensis are known from the Choptank or St. Mary's Formation, the only Carcharocles being juveniles. Juvenile sharks of many species occasionally retain ancestral features. When compared with climate trends, it becomes clear there is some relationship between the transition between Carcharocles species and global average temperatures. Carcharocles megalodon appears in low numbers during a relatively warm stable period preceding the Middle Miocene climactic optimum, quickly rises relatively to Carcharocles chobutensis during the Middle Miocene climactic optimum, and completely replaces its predecessor during the Middle Miocene disruption. A similar pattern is observed in giant threshers. Alopias grandis arises during the relatively warm stable period prior to the MMCO. Alopias palladici emerges during the MMCO. Alopias palladici may outcompete A. grandis during the MMCO, the last in situ A. grandis being known from Zone 12. Alopias palladici doesn't survive till the Choptank Formation, last being represented in the 14-million-year-old bed 14 of the Calvert Formation. This points to the species' downfall being linked to the Middle Miocene disruption. Out of these four species, only Carcharocles megalodon survives the effects of the Middle Miocene disruption. It appears to have outcompeted Carcharocles chobutensis, likely due to better adaptations specializing in feeding on cetaceans, which may have been adversely affected by the Middle Miocene disruption. If Carcharocles megalodon juveniles and Alopias palladici both depended on pinnipeds, their competition may have led to the extinction of Alopias palladici during a bottleneck in resources. Carcharocles megalodon goes extinct approximately 3.5 million years ago, in a much colder climate and possibly competing with the modern great white, which specializes in the consumption of pinnipeds. The Middle Miocene climatic optimum promoted the diversification of large lamnid sharks through an increase in oceanic productivity. Alopias grandis gave rise to the more specialized Alopias palladici, as Carcharocles chobutensis gave rise to the more specialized Carcharocles megalodon. The Middle Miocene disruption created a bottleneck in resources, leading to increased competition between large sharks. Carcharocles megalodon was the only one of these species to persist past 14 million years ago, perhaps due to some anatomical advance. This case study in climatic impact on lamniform sharks shows their worth as an indicator species, which may be useful in the study of other time periods, as well as predicting future trends in lamniform shark biodiversity. There are several related research areas which warrant further study and questions still left unanswered. Further study into the relationship between shark dental characters and climate changes should be studied. it will be necessary to create quantitative methods of proving or disproving these relationships. Larger data sets of fossils associated with accurate dates need to be compiled to see these trends in higher resolution and to see if they are uniform throughout the globe. Marine mammal population dynamics and diversity over time must be studied in greater depth and biases in the fossil record addressed. If C. megalodon did compete with A. pilatusii and win out, why did it not when faced with competition from the great white shark? Questions like these require more in-depth analyses of the function and limitations of specific tooth and dentition designs. The Calvert Formation holds many other groups of animals, which may also allow insight into the ecological effects of the Middle Miocene climatic optimum and the Middle Miocene disruption, especially marine mammals. Understanding these impacts can allow us to more accurately predict ecological effects in the future, as well as past climatic events. I would like to thank all of these people for their invaluable contributions. Without their help, this presentation would not have been possible.